everyone, welcome back to TheTopher Drives, where it is finally spring. We finally don't have a sky full of clouds, and I have spent the last couple of days driving this, the 2024 Nissan Z Nismo, kind of the tuner special of the brand new Nissan Z. And well, I honestly wasn't planning on filming anything on this because I haven't spent a ton of time in it, but I've been driving it all morning and I've been having a ton of fun. So today we're going to do kind of our normal thing. We'll show you around the outside of this Nissan Z. We'll talk about what it's been like to live with for, to be honest with you, only about 24 hours. And then we'll see how it is at commuting. I'm going to go downtown and get a couple of things from Trader Joe's. Today is Saturday. We'll be risking the Trader Joe's parking lot on a Saturday, but I think that kind of adds to the living with appeal of the Nissan Z because it is kind of small, and I think it'll fit in a spot nicely. If you don't know, Trader Joe's parking lots are like the worst thing in the entire world. But anyways, we'll get into all of that later once we're actually in the commute section of the video. But let's talk about some basics. What makes this Nismo different from the regular Z? Well, it's got a different tune on the 3-liter twin turbocharged V6, bumping power up to 420 horsepower and 384 pound-feet of torque, which is up from the base Z's 400 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque, and that's just achieved simply by a tune and some upgraded cooling. It's got a different oil cooler on it, so you know they squeezed a little bit more power out of this thing. And well, Nismo has touched pretty much everything else as well. We've got different bumpers. We have some 19-inch raised wheels, which I absolutely love. Nissan always does a fantastic job on their wheels, especially on Nismo cars, having these forged raised wheels. We're on some Dunlop Sport Max tires, which are the same ones you get on the GTR. Luckily, these only have about 500 miles on them. This car is super fresh, so they don't make a ton of noise yet. Up front, we have some 15-inch rotors. We've got Akebono brakes on this thing, and our 9-speed automatic has been tuned as well. Shifts happen a little bit faster. Downshifts happen 50% faster in Sport Plus mode. We, of course, have a limited slip diff. We have a couple of suspension tweaks with this car, some stiffer ball joints and things like that. So everything's like 10% better than the regular Z. And Nismos have kind of always been like that. You know, it's kind of just been the little low-key tuner special enthusiast version of the Z, or the Juke, or you know, whatever sort of Nismo car you want to talk about. Can you guys believe they did a Nismo version of the Juke? Absolutely wild. Inside we have these lightweight Recaro seats, fully manually adjustable, but they look absolutely epic. Another thing that Nissan always does nicely, and well, speaking of the Nismo Juke, I may as well go all the way and nerd out with it. It had some very similar seats. The Juke Nismo R, I think it was called. It had seats that looked just like this, but I think these look fantastic here in this cabin. We also get Alcantara wrapped steering wheel with the Nismo, and we get some anodized red start-stop button and drive mode selector switches. This car was a little bit of a disappointment when it came out, and I can kind of understand that because there's no manual option available. These are all 9-speed automatics, which is a little bit of a shame for the enthusiast-based car. You think that they would offer both since they have both, and it's not like an extra 20 horsepower is going to grenade the 6-speed manual, so kind of strange that they don't offer a manual. But with the different tuning on this 9-speed, I mean, it does behave a little bit nicer, and we'll show you that once we are out on the road. But I think that in the looks department, this has kind of gotten everything it needs. I think the Nissan Z in base form is still really attractive, but this thing just blows me away. It is so pretty, and I think in this gray color with the red accents, the black raised wheels, it just looks absolutely epic. So this is a 2-seater. Nissan Zs always have been, unless you were getting a 300ZX 2+2 back in the day. Those did have a back seat, but as far as new ones go, we are only 2-seater configuration. We've got this nice little accessory Z mat. We've got a first aid kit. We've got a cargo net back here. And underneath here, there's no spare, but we do have a goop kit, inflator, all of the normal things. Now, as small as this does look, you can actually fit a decent amount of things in here. And, you know, with this shut, if you guys can kind of gauge that, with this lift back design, you can see here, it can kind of fit some things. I'm not getting a ton of things from the grocery store today, so we won't like be fully testing that out. As far as I know, the exhaust is the same on the automatic regular Z and the Nismo. I don't know what it is, but the automatic cars are a little bit louder than the manual ones. There's some reason for it, and someone in the comments can tell me what's up with that. We've got the Nismo badge in the middle of the rear bumper. Kind of a silly spot, but it does look cool. So let's walk around this one last time, and then we'll jump in and we'll get on the road, because that is where the real changes lie with this car. And it's all pretty subtle, like I said, but I'm like just now seeing in person how similar the front is to the OG 240Z. It's like becoming very clear to me in this lighting. Yeah, this car looks fantastic. Kind of cheap feeling doors. The Nismo Z is about 65 grand. We've got Nismo branded floor mats there. Interior wise, the only real changes are a Nismo badge on the cluster, some red accents, steering wheel, seats, and these anodized red switches. Everything else is normal Nissan Z stuff, including these really cool triple gauge pods. With our boost, our turbo speed, and a voltmeter. And funny enough, you can actually have a third turbo gauge right here. If you want 3 gauges that are all about your turbo, you're able to have those. You've got a G meter. I like to leave this on tire pressure just because I like to know how my tires are doing at all times. Number of different gauge displays. I mean, this is all the same as the regular Z, so we won't spend a ton of time showing you this. Though I will say, it is cool that in this view, it is a Nismo Z on the screen, even down to the little Nismo badge on the rear bumper. We'll leave that in sport. I think that's the most aesthetically pleasing. Plus, you get all of your temperature gauges over here, which is nice. Transmission oil temp currently at 140 degrees. This 9-speed is a little bit of a slush box until you get it up to around 190, 200 degrees. Then it starts really snapping off shifts. So we may have to drive this around a little bit before we get the max potential out of that. Nismo also adds a Sport Plus mode, which is really only a transmission tune. Makes your downshifts faster and more aggressive. We'll start in standard mode today. Normal Nissan infotainment, good amount of physical buttons, climate control knobs, USB-C and USB-A ports here, which is nice. You can choose regardless of what sort of cord you have. I have both of them with me for some reason. Strut bracing in the rear here. That's the same as it is in the normal Z. Little compartment back there for the owner's manual. All right. Let's hit the road. We'll start with the windows down, and then we'll end up having to put them up here. This shifter, I have never really been the biggest fan of for a number of reasons. For one, it just is a little bit awkward in the hand, but also, okay, there's actually 3 reasons. It's awkward in the hand, it looks like a shaver, you know, and the third reason is this is the same shift knob you get in a Nissan Rogue or a Pathfinder or whatever. There are other Nissans that have, if not the same, very similar shift knobs to this, and I feel like in something, especially the Nismo, we should have some sort of special thing down here for the automatic, and especially since this is automatic only. Come on, give us something down here to shift our gears manually, or something more aesthetically pleasing than this weird flat shifter. So I think that's the only boomer rant I have for this car. Otherwise, it is a really good time, and I've had a ton of fun in it this morning. Does anyone else really like that sound? It's very satisfying for me. I don't know if that's weird or not. All right, so we're gonna go around, do a little bit of a performance-y circuit. We'll hop on the highway, talk about what the Z is like to live with, to commute in, and then we'll probably end in the Trader Joe's parking lot with me likely getting angry at a lot of people that aren't paying attention. So that's the preview for the video. I'll put chapters if you want to skip ahead to any certain parts. Volume of the exhaust seems to be the same no matter what mode you're in. You know, it just depends on how much trombone you want, how far you rev the car out. And you can kind of play this like a trombone when you are in manual mode, and we will demonstrate that here once I get my climate control sorted out. Now, the transmission tuning in this is a little bit strange because obviously we have a completely different mapping on this from Nismo, and it's almost like there's a bit of self-preservation going on because the 1-2 shift, very slush box kind of slur gear change, but everything else kind of snaps off nicely. Let's just go right into Sport Plus. Let's go into manual, use our paddles. Okay, this person is... about 80% of the way there to getting this thing warmed up, so reaction times are pretty good, but it does react just ever so slightly quicker once that temp comes up about 30 more degrees. Downshifts are pretty satisfying. Sunday driver, get out of my way. You guys can see that 1-2 shift there. It's just a little bit of a but then every other gear, we're pretty good. All right, let's hear this 3-liter sing. You've got to think and time these shifts just right because there's just a little bit of a delay. And it will hold gears, it will hit rev limiter. Once you get some heat into these Dunlop Sport Maxes, they grip hard. Brakes feel nice, very aggressive bite right at the top of the pedal, which does take some getting used to when you're just driving in regular situations, but as far as performance driving goes, it is very nice. Now, in my opinion, I think the regular Z is a little bit stiff, and this kind of takes it up to the next level. This car is quite stiff. You can see that by the amount of bounciness there. I've also got launch control on this car. Let's do that now. Why not? Into drive, Sport Plus, traction off. Left foot hard on the brake, hold both paddles. Right foot hard down. And there's 60. It happens real quick. Everything is defeatable by holding that physical traction control button on the left. Peak power happens close to 5,000 RPM, so you kind of got to be up in the rev range, the turbos hit, and then you're gone. You've got good enough load-on torque for like highway cruising and things, but this 3-liter really likes to rev. Got about a 7,000 RPM redline on this thing. So that's about peak performance from that transmission. This is as fast as it ever shifts. 203 degrees there on the cluster. This is a quick car. I mean, it pulls like a freight train above 5,000 RPM. Yeah, this is a really, really quick car. I love this Alcantara steering wheel. I've honestly found myself driving around in Sport Plus in manual because when you're in automatic, when you're in standard mode, it's really not that exciting. We have these silly air vents in the doors, which are actually in a pretty good spot. I can aim this pretty nicely at my face. Otherwise, the vents in the middle are in a good spot too, right above the infotainment. Easy to aim airflow, which honestly is more important than you may think. Another reason I like when automatics have little schlap shifters down on the floor is a situation just like that, taking off from the light, wanting to change into second gear while you're turning. You're kind of out of luck, unless you have column-mounted paddle shifters, which this does not have. All right, let's switch our brains now from performance driving to daily driving. What is this Nismo Z like to live with? Well, I've had a couple of, this is funny that I'm starting with this because every journalist is just wired to talk about CarPlay, but I've had a couple of weird wireless CarPlay issues, having to reconnect, disconnect my phone, turn the car off, start it back up, and wireless CarPlay is kind of finicky in any car, but I found that in Nissans with wireless CarPlay, it is just that much more finicky, so that's one thing. Ingress and egress, it's all right. These seats are very, very performance-y, but they aren't super aggressively bolstered on the leg portion. They're more aggressively bolstered in the torso portion, so it is a little bit easier to get in and out of, than, something like a super aggressive carbon bucket seat. So I do appreciate that these Recaros are livable. And they are a little bit squishy as well, which is nice. Merging is absolutely no problem. Obviously plenty of power here and torque. Give you guys some standard drive mode in automatic. Show you what this thing is like on the highway. Immediately, this thing puts itself into 9th gear. We do have adaptive cruise control in the Nismo Z. 2 button pushes to set that. You can adjust your distance on the bottom of the steering wheel. Give you a second to observe NVH here. Let's try a pass here with the adaptive cruise. It's going to stay in 9th gear, use that torque. See how it backs off to this Lexus pulling in front of us. Okay. Steering inputs are a little bit twitchy on the highway. Super fast steering rack. The steering has been tweaked by Nismo, so keep that in mind over the regular Z as well. Let's turn cruise control off. Let's test kickdown here in normal mode in 9th gear. Pretty quick there, going from 9th to 5th. A fairly aerodynamically designed vehicle, so NVH is helped in that department. These Dunlop Sport Max tires are certainly not the quietest thing in the world, as you can hear. So you definitely get a bit more tire noise than you do wind noise in the Nismo Z. You get highway manners though otherwise, other than just the steering rack being super quick to react to small adjustments. The seat is fine. Leg compartment, pretty decent. We do have a hard surface on the left for your left knee if you are resting your legs. On the right side, the way that this dashboard is designed, we have a bit of a soft surface here to rest your right leg. Armrests, let's talk about that, because the armrests, unless you're literally 8 feet tall, you don't really have anywhere to put your right arm in the Nismo Z, unless you're really kind of putting it back out of the way, you know, far reach from anything. There's nowhere to just kind of rest it because the parking brake is right there. On the left-hand side, though, complete opposite, a very squishy door panel. So that is nice. I do like that. Very cozy adornment there on the door panel. And I've got to say, I just love an Alcantara steering wheel. It's a little bit thicker than the steering wheel you get on the regular Z. This is the thing, guys, is everything you touch, everything that touches the road, everything dynamically has been touched just a little bit. So don't just think that this is different bumpers and, oh yes, it only makes 20 more horsepower. Yes, it does, but this is the enthusiast version. I mean, everything's been tailored just a little bit. Switch over to normal view here. Give you guys a taste of that. It's funny, each mode you go, Sport to Sport Plus, the car downshifts. Important test. This week between the TheTopher and I, we've been averaging just about 21 mpg. So in combined driving, I wouldn't say that that's too bad. I've probably depreciated that quite a bit with some of my spirited driving over the past 24 hours, but there you go. And into traffic, into chaos. How is visibility out of the Nissan Z? Honestly, not as bad as you may think. The liftback rear glass, while it is slanted, I can see pretty well out of there. Mirrors as well are a good size. You can see around the car. You've got a little bit of a blind spot right behind you, of course, just with the liftback design having quite a bit of metal on that B pillar there. You do have some quarter windows that aid in that a little bit, so a couple minor blind spots, but overall, for a sports car, I mean, it could certainly be worse. As far as placing the car goes, pretty easy to tell as well. I've got the seat all the way down, and while I'm not the biggest fan of the seating position as a whole in this car, just with kind of right arm placement, I do kind of wish the seat could go a little bit lower. I am able to comfortably place this car. So as far as like daily driving goes, I don't think you're going to be too stressed maneuvering this thing around. Hopefully it was fun enough for you guys to just ride along with me to downtown, to the grocery store today. To wrap it up, I mean, I don't think that this car is too hardcore at all to be a daily driver. I think it's fun enough when you're driving it spiritedly as well. Got enough ground clearance to go up that driveway there, and oh my goodness, look at this parking lot. Those are some colorful pants. Man has known for many years that Trader Joe's parking lots are the worst thing ever created. And, well, we're demonstrating that right now. That Accord just got a really good spot. I'm a bit jealous of that. They're much too small, much too chaotic, much too crowded most of the time. We'll get the turn signal on here. All right. Well, we'll have plenty of time to give you some final thoughts. I've really only previously spent time with a manual Z, and this hurts me to say, but I'm not really the biggest fan of the manual transmission. I think it's a little gummy, it's hard to shift fast, so having a bit of a more aggressive tune on this 9-speed I think has helped this car quite a bit. Let's back this in. I'm probably not going to leave this here, but I just want to give you guys a good idea of what it's like to park this thing. You can see our very low res backup camera. That's typical Nissan. Yeah, you see. So we are perfectly in the lines here, but due to the angle of both of these cars, I am just going to adjust slightly. There we go, that's about even. Use our mechanical parking brake to get us parked here. That was just a little bit of a baby commute today in the Nismo Z. let's shut it off. Let's take a look at our parking situation. You can see here, fits pretty nicely there in the spot. Really cool startup sequence there on the cluster. Ah, yes, this is the spot that I'm talking about. Give me this one. You can see I've got front parking assist there to let me know how close those curbs are to the front lip. And let's squeeze this Nismo Z over in the corner spot. Good lines there on the parking camera. All right, this will be the final little parking spot here, and this will be the actual end of the video. So thank you guys all so much for watching. Again, if you have any questions about the Nismo Z, leave them in the comments below. Head over to TheTopher if you want to learn more about this thing. But that will wrap it up for us today. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.